So I miss cons a lot right now. I'm really being hit hard by missing the ability to go watch a bunch of people dressed as anime that I don't watch anymore and look at them and buy some sort of overpriced plush. But that's not all that a con is about. And I miss running into someone unexpected that you don't know in a hallway and having an unforgettable experience with them. And so I want to ask you, what's one of those memories for you?
It's you, actually.
Oh, no way. I'm flattered.
I really felt like that was intentionally a loaded question, but I know your ego better than that.
No, I'm like, no way. I like, you've been to so many cons, it can't be me.
Well, but you're definitely an easy one to remember, especially in this setting.
That's true.
Walking into your panel and being blown away by the quality, and then learning that you admire my panels as well, and just there was that time where we were both dressed as Guzma, where we actually got to talk on neutral field.
Yeah, like it was after my panel, and you guys were still hanging out up front, and then we decided to just start talking. Even like not because we were both dressed as Guzma, not because we were attending each other's panels, but we just started actually talking, and that's kind of how this whole shenanigans started. I'm sorry, listener, but no, like what's one that doesn't involve us that you really treasure? And if you need some time to think, I can start with mine.
You start, definitely. Right. Go for it.
So mine it was Fanime 2015. 2015 in May, and I'm dressed as a Homestuck character, and I'm on my own. Not a good combination.
Easy way to
get messed up at an anime convention. This is anti-advice, listener. Do not dress as a Homestuck character and go to a convention alone. But here I was. It was 8 p.m. The weather was kind of humid, but still breezy enough where I wasn't dying in my face paint. And so I'm roaming these halls, and I leave the convention center for a little bit to get some air. And I don't. How familiar are you with the Dark Souls game?
Because I've had Dark Souls and Bloodborne both explained to me at different points.
You don't need to be familiar with it.
Okay.
You just gotta know that in Dark Souls, you save at a bonfire.
Yes, I do know that.
So I walk out of Fanime, 8 p.m., and there's a bonfire, like a Dark Souls bonfire, just in the middle of the cement outside the front of the convention center.
Like an actual fire?
No, I inspect it closer because I want to make sure it's not an actual fire. It's not. But it is a sword stuck into like a plastic sword stuck into orange streamers that are blowing up from an air machine.
Classic.
And a heat machine.
Oh.
So that it feels warm. So that it feels like a bonfire. And not only is there a bonfire sitting there, there's a group of about 8 people sitting around it. 2 knights, a wizard, and then a Captain America, and 2 random other people. And so I'm like, this is the sickest thing I've ever seen. And so and there's not a huge crowd either, which is the most surprising part to me. That seems like something that would attract a lot of attention, but it wasn't. It was just the 8 people already sitting around it, and no one else was like hovering. It seemed like even though there was a lot of people in other spots in front of this convention center, this was like this own secluded little area that no one was bugging, and so I felt weird coming up to it at first. But then I did anyways, because I was too enamored with the whole idea of this, and I just sat down. I didn't say anything to anyone. No one said anything to me. I just sat down and started hanging out with them. And then they handed me a rock. And so here's the other thing you need to know about Dark Souls. In Dark Souls, there's an item called soapstone. It's just a rock. What you use soapstone for is to leave messages for other players in the world. Because the way that Dark Souls multiplayer works is that you don't play with someone else at the same time, but you are online and your world is shared with other people. So if you leave a message, someone else going through the same area as you at that time will see your message. Whether it's a hint or hindrance, whatever message you leave, that's what they see. And then I look at the ground where all these people are sitting, and they have all carved stuff into the cement with the soapstone. they're all leaving messages for the next people to come by. And I'm like, this is the tightest shit. And so I write like a little hello, and I draw a little doodle of the character that I'm cosplaying. And they're like, and then the guy who handed it to me said, hey, thanks for writing something. And then they broke off a little piece of it, and they said, you keep this part.
Wow.
And so that's what this person had done. They had set up a Dark Souls save point at an anime convention just to have people come and sit down and do this. Not for attention, not for money, just to hang out.
They constructed the perfect sentimental convention experience.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like it only cost them money to design this and to break off the chalk and whatever. And I saw that they had a bag full of chalk. So like obviously they had prepared for a lot of people to come by. And I don't know whether or not a lot had. There were a lot of messages, but at the end of the day, this person wasn't doing it for anybody else than the rest of the people at this convention. And so that's why I miss conventions.
Those are undeniably the coolest moments. Conventions are a lot of things to a lot of people, but I think that is at the heart of most people's convention experience is a desire for that kind of unspoken connectivity.
I agree. You have enough time to think of one for yourself?
Actually, I did.
All right.
But it feels stupid following yours up.
It's not going to be stupid. You know what? Also, it also falls in line with the theming of conventions because
True.
Everything is either very cool or very stupid.
One of the it wasn't so much a solid convention as it was an event that lots of people were cosplaying at because of a tangential theme.
All right.
I was there dressed as a Japanese yokai.
Okay. Was this the Japanese festival in February?
It was,
okay.
And I wanted to avoid saying that because
we should set the scene.
We don't cosplay at Matsuri.
No,
it is the Japanese cultural festival.
That being
However,
said, I'm guilty of this too.
Right.
So
in the early years before when we were young teenagers or young adults and we didn't quite get it, we cosplayed at it. And lots of people still do.
They still have cosplay contests at it.
And so an actual Asian friend of mine asked us not to, and I've respected that.
Yeah.
So I was there as the Kuchisake Onna, which is my favorite yokai.
Which avid listeners might remember from last week's episode.
Yes. And so I have more stories in this outfit than I think I do. And so part of the cosplay is this giant pair of fake scissors that I had. They were plastic. They were harmless.
Yeah.
But me and my buddy who I was there with, who was not dressed up, we were hanging out in this kind of off to the side, big open area. And it was actually like a big staircase that led up to just like a platform. Like the place served as part of an auditorium for the science center, actually. And so I see a Roxas.
Okay.
Kingdom Hearts?
Yep, Kingdom Hearts Roxas.
Messing around with their Keyblade.
Uh-huh.
And my buddy shows me this app on his phone where every time you swing it, it makes sword clanging noises.
Okay.
So I asked if I could borrow it to fight Roxas.
Okay.
So I held the phone in my palm and then held the scissors in my hand, and I challenged Roxas to a fight. And we dueled.
You pretended to fight
with Keyblade and scissors while a furry played Toy Box's Sailor song in the background.
Incredible. All right. So that on paper maybe that sounds dumb, but in my heart I feel joy thinking about this situation because this is the kind of situation that could only happen at a con or an event like a con. And now that's not to say that Matsuri is a convention. It's not. It's a festival celebrating Japanese culture. That being said, the situation that Matsuri sometimes puts itself in allows for these kinds of situations to happen. So
most definitely.
Yeah. But that sounds that makes my heart very warm. It fills me up inside.
I don't know if I've ever seen that particular Roxas again.
You know, it's hard to tell.
Right?
I see a lot of Roxases at conventions, and I never know if they're the same one. Maybe it is. Maybe there's only one Roxas cosplayer, but their spirit inhabits every Roxas cosplayer whenever someone decides to cosplay Roxas.
I can't tell if you're actually referencing Kingdom Hearts.
I'm not. But it sounds plausible, right?
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, this is the It's Still Cool podcast. My name's Tony.
And my name is Jesse.
And this is a podcast where we like to talk about things that are still cool, including conventions, cosplaying Japanese yokai, and chalk.
And brain chemicals. Which will bring us right into our patch notes, a section that we sometimes do where we talk about stuff that we messed up last episode or maybe several episodes ago.
Yes. So, our patch notes for this week. This one's been a long time coming. A couple of episodes ago, I talked about serotonin and dopamine. And I didn't know the difference between the two. Now we do. Serotonin is the chemical that makes you happy that is stored in your brain. And dopamine is the chemical that makes you happy and is stored in your gut.
I think you got those backwards.
Maybe I did. I'll do a live patch note right now.
And so then the umbrella term for both of these things is endorphins.
Yeah.
And I've seen all three of those words buzzing around, and I've never bothered to look them up.
Well, we did for you. So if you were also unlearned about this, I was wrong. Dopamine is the one that's stored in the head, and serotonin is the one that is stored in the gut. So now you can flex on all your friends. And if you already knew this, we're sorry.
And my patch note for this week is just a clarification. Last week I talked about something that was a little bit outside of my breadth, as I am... I guess I just wanted to clarify that I was in no way saying that a game needs to have representation to be enjoyed by a demographic that it didn't bother the people I was playing with that there weren't any black people in Smash, and I wasn't implying that I was like going to bat for them or anything, or I didn't mean to imply that I was going to bat for them or anything like that. I had a much more elegant way of saying that before the episode started.
Well, it's out there now.
Yep.
And I still think you've made your point.
That's my patch note.
So that is the patch notes for the episode. Make sure to yell at us in the comments of the video or at our email address, it'sstillcoolcast@gmail.com. We're still waiting on our first email. The first one to email us will get a special prize, undefined. Just check it out. I'm waiting.
It could be anything.
It could even be me shouting your email out on the podcast. It could be something more. You won't know until you try. But yeah, that's those sections for us. I kind of wanted to continue talking about cons.
Yeah. So to leap off of your point then.
Okay.
There are, conventions in and of themselves are a really funny circumstance. You talk about like situations at cons that can't occur anywhere else. And so conventions are this result of a level of human development that I think is just frankly absurd.
All right.
In a lot of ways.
You're going to need to explain this to me.
Okay. I think a lot about what we value and why we value it because I spend a lot of time thinking about evolution and survival and instincts and stuff like that. You know, I've somehow at the age of nearly 30, I still have a collection of friends that like to talk about paleontology.
Sometimes that's what someone's calling is looking at bones.
Right. Well, and so I guess more prehistoric biology, since none of my friends are actually interested in digging up bones.
Okay.
And that's not to say that it's just that at this far in my life, I haven't tried to be a paleontologist or an ancient creature biologist. What is that called? Never mind. Paleobiologist.
There we go.
And so to have it still as a hobby is often seen as something for when you're younger. And there's no real stigma around that, but it's definitely like a stereotype.
You know, I get this one gets thrown around a lot, you know, and as an adult no one asks you what your favorite dinosaur is.
Exactly. That's exactly the joke that I was going off of there. That's what had me thinking about that. So you look at we're in a place societally where we can be as creative as capitalism lets us be.
Yeah.
No, but we have these stories and we have these things that we love and adore. And I was thinking the other day, like, what was the first piece of art, and was it made for
an audience?
Was it made for an audience, or was it made for a pragmatic reason? Did somebody sculpt a replica of a rhino because they were like, look what I can do, or were they like, hey guys, look out for this guy?
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually. That's something I don't really think about a lot. It's like, when he carved David, it's like, look at this beautiful man. It's like, watch out for this motherfucker.
Right.
He stole my money and called me a bitch.
Oh, and but David was carved in an era where art was already, like, established and accepted, but still we don't know.
We're never gonna know.
We don't know which of these priceless works of ancient traditional art were made out of spite.
We'll never know.
So, with that little like establishing tangent aside, then we have the absolute gumption to pay money to go into a big building where everybody is celebrating this art, and it's not a museum.
Yep. The art is ostensibly not at the place for celebrating it.
Right.
So we've paid money to an organization who has rented out this building for us to stand in and walk around in and sometimes sit in and enjoy something that isn't present. You have a lot of feelings for something you know nothing about.
And it can be present. A lot of conventions have anime movie showings or
the artists themselves.
And meeting and greeting them, getting to know and getting to see your favorite artist or voice actor or actor talk. But it's not necessary, and it's not how the first one started.
All right.
Because, believe it or not, an interview with George R.R. Martin, of all people, revealed what the... Huh?
Gimmer? George R.R. Martin? G-R-R-M? Gimmer?
Yeah. The Game of Thrones guy.
Yeah.
The Game of Thrones guy that didn't technically ruin Game of Thrones.
He wiped his hands at that pretty quickly.
Yeah, right? So he was apparently at the first ever Comic-Con. At least the first one in the United States that was recorded. Yeah. And his badge, he's actually, like, guest number 1. So he is the first comic book nerd.
Ostensibly.
By
Verifiably.
title. Yeah. And it was just a small room in a convention center where people got together to, and I believe they brought and like exchanged and talked about
comics.
It was more like a book club.
Yeah. Well, you say the word book club, right? And now I extrapolate that to the modern convention scene. Yeah, it's a book club.
It is, right?
We're all paying this company that runs the book club so that we can all come and then talk about quote-unquote books with each other.
How do you know who you can talk about it with? Well, they're dressed from it.
They're dressed like the Thing, or they're carrying a body pillow of a character from the Thing.
You gotta go to body pillows this early in the discussion?
It's gonna be a recurring theme.
Nothing's worse than going to someone's place after a convention and discovering that they have a body pillow of the character you're currently dressed as.
That's a warning sign, listeners. That is a sign that the person whose house you went to, unless you already live with them, they may have you over for ulterior motives and not to show you the cool AMV that they found. So beware. But no, it is kind of a book club, but it is also, like, I say the art isn't there, right? But some people bring their own art to it. Like, they have AMV showings, they have cosplay contests, like the cosplay itself, that's art. People put them together, unless you buy it, and that doesn't really count, I suppose. For this, at least.
And, what I was going to say is, like, you can... We said for the sake of the joke that the art isn't there.
Yeah.
But art is very subjective, and even somebody who purchases a cosplay, they're still performing to a degree.
That's true. And that's not to say they didn't edit it or add to it and create something new, like a collage.
Yeah, and then even then, they don't owe anybody anything.
No, they don't.
For cosplaying. It's just, that particular example became tricky to fit into our previous analogy.
Yeah, I tried to work something in that didn't actually fit. That was a rough transition. But I miss it. I miss this period of this weekend that exists kind of separate from time. That conventions, by their own nature, sort of distort the world around them. They create this space, like I said earlier, like normally doesn't exist. And I don't think without the stability of like the, all these pieces coming together to create a convention can exist. And once you enter it, time kind of ceases for a little bit.
Sure, if your boss asked you to come in on 2 hours of sleep with a hangover, you'd tell him to get fucked. But for a convention, that's normal.
Yeah, like, you didn't get a lot of sleep because you've been partying all night in your hotel room. And now it's 10 a.m., you've slept for 2 hours, and you've got a panel in 30 minutes. That sounds great. Get me some water, and I'll go. See, not only does time distort itself, the limitations of the human body also seem to be put on hold during a convention. You can exert yourself so much more during it, and you will not feel the after effects of it until the minute you leave.
It's almost like the shonen fans have a perfect symbiosis
with their media of choice,
right? Because now they have the power to go beyond.
Yeah, they can go further beyond. So you bring up, paleobiology, right? And I'm not going to go that far back, but I'm going to go back to human history, maybe in like before the 1000s, right? Like, is this what they did? Did they all get together for a certain amount of time and just like party the fuck out and then go back to their lives?
I believe that's what the Romans did, yeah.
Yeah, like, holy shit. Like, it feels so natural to me. Like, I don't know if this is in our bones that we as a species should get together in these masses of people who we don't know 99% of to enjoy each other's company regardless, and then exhaust ourselves and then go home. Like,
we are social creatures by nature,
and a con is like a social, like, stimulus, not stimulus, overstimulus. A con is like someone's taking your social need for half of a year and injecting it into 3 months or three days, a weekend full of all the social experience you need right here, complete with like seeing faces you don't know, talking to people you don't know, smelling things you don't want to smell. And it's an unreplicatable experience, and that's why I miss it so much.
Yeah, that's fair. It's funny talking about this on the It's Still Cool podcast. Mm-hmm. Because believe it or not, my impressions of conventions before going to them were basically like the way that they were demeaned on television.
Wow.
The super nerdy, like socially unapproachable, like awkward 12 Trekkies in a room talking about their fan fictions.
Okay.
And so when my buddy invited me to go to Phoenix Comic-Con with him in 2008, I was like, a Comic-Con? I mean, I know we're nerds, but we're not that nerdy.
Yeah.
And then we went and I had a great time.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It was misrepresented.
Right.
That's very different from how I interpreted cons when I was younger. So I had never imbibed media that portrayed cons in that light. The only way I knew about cons was from my freaking Beckett Pokemon TCG magazines.
Oh.
Where they would talk about, hey, at this convention, this cool thing got revealed. And I'm like, what? Or E3 from Nintendo Power.
Yeah.
That's all I knew about conventions. I thought conventions were like something only like the elite of the elite could go to. Like a meeting of the minds.
Jeez.
I thought conventions were like the end all be all for the people who were like the top dogs in these things that I really loved. And now I go to conventions and I'm like, oh my god, am I the smartest person in the room?
That's so funny. Yeah, I suppose Beckett would paint them in a better light than The Simpsons.
Yeah, I suppose so. But then again, Beckett had covers of Mew skateboarding. So, I'm not sure how good of anything they could paint in any light.
God, the Beckett magazine was
That was something else. The Beckett magazine, for listeners who may be unaware, the Beckett Pokemon TCG magazine was a magazine that was printed starting, I'm going to ballpark 1999, because Pokemon came out here in 1998. And it was an unofficial magazine. Nintendo had nothing to do with this. Beckett was just a group of people who liked trading cards, who liked the Pokemon TCG, and started making a nationally circulated magazine about it. And because it wasn't official, they didn't have official art to use for the covers. And so they got really out there. They got very out there. Like I said earlier, they had Mew riding a skateboard. The Mew was drawn to have Tony Hawk's proportions, so he could fit on a skateboard. It is as unsightly as you may imagine it.
Yeah, that's a fun one to go looking up, audience.
Yeah, just type Beckett Pokemon Magazine.
Is that with 2 C's or 2 K's?
It is Beckett.
2 T's. They had okay. Did anybody try to convince you that the little blue monkey with the writing utensils for tail was a real Pokemon?
Yes.
God.
So this magazine, it would ostensibly print every issue had a card list of the current cards available in America and their average prices, which never made any sense because like the prices were more so determined by where you lived than their actual value.
Right.
It had articles about the trading card game and playing it correctly, which went way over my head as I was an 8-year-old. And it had previews of what was coming up in the Pokemon TCG because they had a couple of people who would go to Japan and tell them the news. And since they didn't have official art to use, we had very horrible renditions of what would end up being Celebi and what would end up being Meryl. And...
Oh, the famous several pages of the Johto Pokemon.
Yep.
Where Macargo is purple and he looks like he's got grapes coming out of him. Half of them have their Japanese names. Half of them don't.
Meryl is still called Peekaboo.
Yep. It's fairly legendary artwork amongst the particular corner of the Pokemon fandom that
but if
grew
you're
up
just
with it.
Somewhat familiar with Pokemon and you thought Sword and Shield were cool, I would very, very, very much recommend you check this out. It's something very hilarious that isn't circulated as much nowadays because it is a decade old, or 2 decades old, almost.
And it's obsolete.
It's definitely obsolete, but it's very funny still.
Yeah. With the advent of the internet, I mean, you know, now we have both the good aspects of a self-published fan magazine and the bad aspects of the same concept kind of segregated on the internet. Where you can, when you find one half of that, it's usually consistent, and when you find the other half of that, it's definitely consistent.
Much to the detriment of the people leading to the consistency of it.
Yeah, I 100% sincerely believe that if they had they probably had like a fan section, like a fan letter section.
Yeah, they definitely did.
I'm pretty sure Sonichu missed being in that magazine by just
a couple weeks. It was this close. I'm happy that exists though, because it encapsulates an era that cannot be replicated.
The middle stage of modern nerd media is just indescribable, and it was over so fast.
It was, and that's what I wanted to get to, is that there's this era of media that was rushed by because it was the advent of the internet, the end of the magazine era, and the beginning of the internet age. Some of that history is gone, and that's what's upsetting to me. Is that there aren't like. You can Google any con that has happened in the past 6, 7, even 8 years and find full videos of almost all of them so that you could, somewhat live ostensibly what it was like. But any con between 2007 and 2010, in those short 3 years, there's nothing. You've got a couple of pictures at best.
Yeah.
But none of that was saved digitally. And that's the thing that kind of upsets me.
I remember going on to the convention's websites or cosplay.com and sifting through pictures after every convention, like where's me,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you'd make it.
Mm-hmm.
Now
you
go to a con and you're guaranteed to be on the cringe thread on 4chan's cosplay board.
Or you're going to be in a video with P. Diddle.
Right.
Mm-hmm. One of the two.
It could happen to you.
It could happen to you. Seems like you're running out of steam on this topic.
I'm not. It's just such an overwhelming topic. I'm almost afraid of where to jump to next.
Anywhere you land is good.
Then, geez, okay. Then let me go into a big story. Then
go for it.
Because 2010, the dawn of kind of the modern era of nerddom, rough estimate.
All right.
That's when I had, and I don't know why I didn't choose this as the story I told.
All right. Well, you needed some time to find it
because your prompt was refresh my memory.
My prompt was what's a treasured memory you have of a random encounter at a con.
Sure. So.
Okay.
There I was. With my first ever girlfriend.
All right.
She suckered me into doing a couple's cosplay. Which I would, it's not really my thing, but I wasn't like being a grump about it. The costumes wound up turning out kind of cute. We were Gijinka, Plusle, and Minun.
All right, that's a cute idea for a cosplay.
We had sort of like a sporty look to us.
Yeah, they're kind of sporty. They're cheerleaders.
Yeah, so we had like the colored sweatbands on our wrists. We actually had headphones with the symbols painted on them instead of doing them on our cheeks. We had custom hats made because this friend knew like a bunch of
the local hatter.
Yeah, literally yes. That hat that Monty wears, the purple and red one, that was made by.
Okay, so literally the local hatter.
And so this is when I was with my older group of friends still. I hadn't broken out to become the social butterfly that I am.
Okay.
And we were up in the game room. And the game room is a weird place to be at a convention when you don't have a purpose. Because on one hand, here we are playing Super Smash Brothers, which we could be playing at home. And, the game room has now definitely become well known for being the place where you go when competitive gaming is what you do. And you want to play in person.
Or you're meeting with friends who you don't live close by and you want to play a game together.
Sure, that works too. But so here we are up in the game room. Everybody, even my girlfriend, who wasn't like a huge gamer, but she was budding into nerdom, so she was trying everything. And that was really cool. So after losing DDR against somebody in a Psyduck Kigurumi, I was standing around, not really knowing what to do with myself, as all of my friends have their faces buried in screens. Suddenly, a Team Rocket grunt barges through the door and locks eyes with me. And he says to me, "Hey, little buddy, you want some free food?"
Yep.
And I thought to myself, this is what I came here for. To get kidnapped.
Yep.
No, but this guy was clearly into the act. He was somebody who was dressed as a character and he wanted to portray that character.
He was acting like the character instead of just dressing like
So here's a scrupulous, dumb Team Rocket grunt. So I went with him. Yep. And in this particular configuration of the convention, we were at a hotel where the room for the games was a separate building. So we're walking across the parking lot back toward the convention center, and I'm making jokes with them back and forth. I'm kind of testing the waters to see
if they're actually cool
and how much of a Pokemon fan he is. I was like, gee, mister, I've got a cousin in the Ore region who met somebody like this, and he's like, oh, no, we don't do that sort of thing. That was my little Coliseum joke to see what he knew. And this was an expert Pokemon fan. So we're almost back to the convention center when all of a sudden I hear shouting and running behind me. And it's my buddy who was dressed as Red.
Okay.
Running after us. Stop right there, Team Rocket. And the guy, without skipping a beat, turns and goes, oh, I'm not Team Rocket. And Red goes, well, what's the R stand for then? And he goes, research. We're testing a new type of Pokemon food, and this little fella has volunteered. And I'm like, right, free food, Chief. And so we wind up hanging out with him the rest of the day, and he's an absolute blast. The next,
literally,
yeah. Pun intended. Is that a pun? Really?
That's a pun.
The next day of the convention, my girlfriend had to work, and I didn't want to be mining by myself because we all know how stupid Plusle looked by itself in Pokemon Coliseum.
Yeah, but Minun's incredible, and I don't hear anything else about it.
Not against their designs, but the fact that they go together. Yeah. So I threw together a really, really bad Sneasel Gijinka.
All right.
I had like a bowler hat that I put like a gold Hanukkah Gelt coin in, and a big red like cardboard feather,
vaguely feather shaped cardboard piece.
And I wore all black. I think I had like a pendant on that was the right color, and then before leaving for work, my girlfriend did my eyelashes to look like the Droogies, because that's who Sneasel's kind of inspired by. And I go to the con, and I meet up with the Team Rocket guy, and it turns out Sneasel and Weavile are his favorite Pokemon.
Incredible.
Right?
How coincidental.
So we went around the convention capturing all the other Pokemon Gijinka cosplayers, because that used to be...
It was huge.
Huge.
And it still is decently large, but it used to be the big thing.
It dropped significantly. Yeah, Pokemon Gijinka, just in case there's anybody listening, it's essentially like...
a humanized version of a Pokemon.
Yeah, and it can vary a lot, because some Gijinka are like more anthropomorphic, like people will slap on the ears and the tails, but a lot of the time, commonly, the way that the term is used is that you've created an outfit inspired by the Pokemon that resembles the Pokemon to a heavy degree.
Yes.
And there's some Pokemon that it lends itself better to than others.
Obviously, like the more human-shaped Pokemon.
Well, those are sometimes harder to do.
Sometimes. But...
Translating a Pokemon like Gardevoir into an outfit can be a little bit weird, because her hair is weird, and that thing on her chest is...
a nice, really big pendant.
Yeah, there's ways to do it, but...
Gardevoir's got this weird, long face that's difficult to replicate in cosplay. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the weird little flappy lips and
this weird kissy face she's always making.
Yeah, that one, right. Yeah. That's a joke about
the way the Gardevoir was drawn in Generation 3.
Or if you look at it as if it's facing the other way, it's very silly. Go try it. And so I was really scared I wasn't going to get your reference right there.
I trusted you.
So we wound up rounding up all the other Pokemon Gijinka, and it was great. It was a bounty. We had a Xatu, a Darkrai, a Nidoking, a Flygon, a Porygon Z.
All right, so you said Xatu.
Yeah.
I've also seen Xatu Gijinka at Fanime.
Of all
And he's always
Pokemon.
The same guy every year. He's
nice.
always... And he runs the cosplay chess.
Oh my god. He can see the future.
He can see every move before it's played.
That's cool. And so ultimately there was a revolt.
All right.
But yeah, we wound up hanging out with the guy the whole convention, and he was super cool. And then, we got his contact info, and one night when nobody could join us for the weekly Thursday night $10 all-you-can-play at GameWorks, my girlfriend was like, well, what if we hit up the Team Rocket guy to go with us? Yeah, that's a great idea.
He probably likes video games.
So we hit him up, we picked him up, and we just started to develop a friendship with him.
Yep.
8 months later, we're living together.
Yep.
And Team Rocket AZ is formed. This is the
story. This is the origin story.
This is the story of the legendary Agent Porch, for who I, Agent Patio, am named.
All because of a random con happenstance.
Exactly. All because all of my friends were not paying attention when I got kidnapped.
That I think speaks for itself. The power of these events. The great potential held within each convention is too great to quantify. It's all of these people gathering, so eager, so overflowing with excitement and love for the thing that they came to book club to talk about, and it creates these miracles. That's what they are. These are fucking miracles that happen at conventions. And they're an irreplaceable part of my life, at least, and I just miss them so. I miss them so. They exist in this space that I would put a family gathering on. Like these unmissable events for me.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And here in current year, during current conditions, it's just not replicable.
Definitely not. It is not an event that can be redone with current circumstances. Now, will they ever happen in the future? Obviously. Even if every convention company right now went out of business, I'd mourn their loss, but the people who put them together aren't going to go down without fighting.
Exactly.
So, well, that's a good memory. I would like to share a memory that I hold dear, but is not ostensibly good.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So,
I'll start searching for one of my own then.
No pressure. Caveat: I am 15 years old in this story.
Important caveat.
Important caveat. In the year 2008.
Oh.
Back in the year 2008, I'm 15 years old, and I am going to a convention alone. It is my second convention ever, and this time I'm not going with anybody. I'm just going by myself.
You gotta stop doing that.
I really got to. I didn't learn from this one, and then I dressed as a homestuck and went alone. I didn't go alone, but I was alone at the moment. Still a bad idea. So I didn't have a cosplay, but I had seen so much cosplay at my first ever convention. And I'm like, I want to cosplay, but I don't know how. And so what do I have in my room? Well, I've got an Invader Zim long sleeve shirt where it says Invader Zim on the front and it's got green and white sleeves. And I'm like, that looks cute. I'm going to have that. Oh, I got a Gur plush. I'll do that. What do I do with the Gur plush? I got a shoelace. I'll tie him to the shoelace like I'm walking him. And that's what I did. So I cut school that day. I took public transit to the convention with this getup, dragging the Gur doll along with me onto the public transit, and then to the convention center. And I'm like, I'm cosplaying. And then I met with someone who I was aware of, but I wasn't necessarily friends with. We had gone to the same school, and I know who they were tangentially. But I'm like, well, I'm just going to hang out with this person the whole time, because I know who they are. And we did. We just hung out. But I didn't know what their schedule was going to be for the convention. And they were hanging out with their friend group, and they graciously let me come along, and we were talking, and I was kind of a lot of it was kind of going over my head, but I didn't really care. I was just happy to be around someone that I kind of knew. This person was 17, about to graduate, so they were a little older than me, and I didn't really know them, like I said. So we are stuck together in the sense that you wave to someone you know at the grocery store. But now I'm stuck to this person.
Now you're seeing each other in every aisle.
Yeah, we might as well be shopping together at this point. And so their plan for the convention was their favorite band was playing during the convention, during a concert segment. They were hosting a concert at a music hall across the street. And their favorite band from Japan was here at this convention. They were going to go see them. Well, the tickets were going to be given out at 6 a.m. the next day. And they were like, I'm staying right here. I'm not going to go sleep. I'm going to stay in line right here so I don't miss my tickets. And I said, well, I don't have any other plans. And I don't know this band, but I don't want to be alone. So I stuck out there with them.
Okay.
And I slept on the floor.
All right.
And this is a memory I hold dear, not because I had a particularly good experience, but because I had a particularly unique experience.
Sure.
Being near someone who you don't really know and isn't really making any effort to get to know you, but isn't also annoyed by your presence enough to tell you to leave, which I didn't really understand at the time. It's kind of like those fish that have leeches attached to them, but the fish doesn't care. The eel doesn't have any say in where the fish is going, but the fish doesn't care that the eel's there. So the eel, we might end up in a net, but I didn't really make this choice. That's how I ended up being. I ended up sleeping on the floor. I ended up getting in trouble for it because you're not supposed to sleep at the con.
Right.
The con is also a 24-hour convention. The individual halls are closed at night, except for the gaming hall, but the con floor itself is open all night. So at 3 a.m. you will get people just running through the halls in whatever cosplay fancies them at the moment. And so We were standing in line all night. And I slept as much as I could without getting in trouble. And that's that story.
Incredible.
I didn't end up getting a ticket. I didn't end up going to the concert. I ended up going home and sleeping. Yes.
Yep. That sure is.
that again, these are moments that I don't think can happen even in the real world. Because you're not going to meet someone at like a concert that like is there who you don't know, but doesn't mind you being, well, okay, you're pointing at me like you have an experience about this.
I don't have a personal experience, but I have another setting where these kinds of interactions happen. Right. Where, as you put it, and as I'm going to stretch the definition,
stretch it.
Social miracles happen.
Okay.
You're talking to me about this, and it's like, these are like sitcom scenarios, right?
Yeah, like situations that don't actually happen, but we make a story about it on TV so people laugh. Like, what I experienced sounds like a Frasier episode.
Yeah.
Like,
but there's one more setting. Raves.
Oh.
Raves are absolutely wells for people to trust each other way too much, build absolutely sincere, superficial bonds in the blink of an eye, and generally are just prone to making objectively poor choices that aren't necessarily bad ideas, just bigger risks than they should be.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Now, that being said, my only experience with raves are at conventions. Conventions.
Exactly. And it's no wonder why the two things cohabitate. Because it's very natural for the kinds of people who like to rave to want to go to a convention, and vice versa.
Vice versa, exactly.
I have one story of a friend who went to a rave, went back to somebody's house after the rave, and found another friend of mine that he knew but wasn't friendly with asleep in their closet.
Incredible.
Neither of the people lived there.
Yeah, no, of course they don't.
Right.
If you're sleeping in someone's closet, you probably don't sleep at that house.
Yeah, fair.
Because you probably have a bed there or a couch.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
My raves, my Anime Con rave story is not one that I was there for. But I witnessed firsthand.
Oh no.
So this was SabotenCon 2016. And SabotenCon 2016, I was not staying at con site, but a friend was, and we were using their hotel room as sort of like the hub for all of our stuff. Because we don't carry all of our stuff the whole time at the convention. And they were they had in their care at the time their 16-year-old cousin, who it was their first con, and they were like staying away from home because they were having home troubles. Like their home was not being very accepting of who they thought they were becoming as a young almost young adult. And so they were like, okay, well, stay with your cousin for a while, and maybe you'll feel a little better for the summer. And so they had brought in for the sake of anonymity, let's give him the name Jerry. So Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld, right? That's where my brain was. So Jerry is staying with us, and Jerry says, "I'm going to try out the rave." And we say, "Jerry, the rave is for 18 plus." And so if you're
naturally, you guys get Jerry in.
No.
Oh.
We're trying to be responsible, and so we say, "Jerry, you can go back to the con floor because it's still open, but you can't go to the rave. They won't even let you in. Like you quote unquote need an ID." To get into the rave. So we don't hear from Jerry for a couple hours. We're like, well, he probably is in the game room, or he made a friend maybe or something. We don't know. He comes back up. Sweaty as all hell, wearing cat ears and paws
that he did not have prior.
He did not have before leaving the room. With the number 24 in marker drawn on his face and a star drawn across his other eye. And we said, "Did you go to the rave?" And he said, "Yeah, they let me in." And that's my rave story.
Incredible.
And after that, he told us he thought he was a furry.
Okay. That's very fair.
Yeah.
That's very fair. Oh boy.
What? So the anime con rave. It sounds, and I've been to a couple, but I was too young and too delirious to remember what happened at most of them. But to my understanding, they are like rave light, like LITE.
Yes.
They are not going to be as hard as a real rave, but you might be able to have a little bit of fun if you decide to go to one.
Yeah, they're I mean, if you like the idea of the rave and don't want all the things that come with going to a real rave, you're not. I guess it's if you're not committed enough.
Yeah,
because I'm not trying to say that raves are dangerous. I am definitely saying that raves are a big commitment, though.
Yeah, no, raves aren't inherently dangerous, but a rave is a huge thing to have to prepare yourself for, and once you're in, you're in. Like you're not gonna come back out until it's done.
Yeah.
And sometimes the rave lasts a lot longer than when it physically ends. I've got stories from other friends about that, but that can be for another episode. So
the Rave Master episode.
The Rave Master, where we talk about that weird carrot-nosed dog that I don't remember the name of.
Well, the theme song just calls him a carrot-nosed dog.
There we go.
And the theme song was by Real Big Fish.
I can't believe that is still a true fact.
What, you're expecting it to not be someday?
Maybe. Because it seems too unbelievable.
I bring it up every possible opportunity.
You have to keep saying it or else it'll become untrue.
So
an anime con rave is like a starter rave. Like, it comes with the champ and some Mancala beads. And you can put it away when you're done. Is that one too deep?
I'm just gonna let it hang. That is just... Alright, nope. I didn't hear it. I was trying to play it cool. I straight up did not understand the words you said.
It is a starter rave. I referenced the very first Pokemon TCG starter deck.
Oh.
The 2-player starter deck came with Machamp and used the Mancala beads for the damage counters.
The Mancala beads. Like, why is this box so heavy?
Yeah. Oh, it's got a bag full of glass beads in it. What is this for? You put them on damage. Okay.
Yeah, damage your skull.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they were like, maybe we shouldn't...
maybe we should use cardboard little circles.
Yeah,
instead.
This thing that is on the news causing fights in schoolyards, maybe we shouldn't put glass marbles in it.
Listen, Mancala is a beloved family game. I love Mancala.
I've literally never understood the rules to Mancala.
It's house rules.
Oh.
It's much like Monopoly.
Oh. Where,
depending on the house you grow up in, Mancala is very fun or very unenjoyable.
I see.
So, we're going back to this because I still haven't defined it technically. An anime con rave is a rave you can go to without having to prepare for it too much. You can kind of just peruse it, like a library. You just kind of go in. You don't have to take a book.
The opposite of a library. It's noisy and there's nothing to read.
There are shirts to read.
In the dark.
It's pretty bright in there.
It's true.
And there are shirts that say, please hug me, and you don't want to touch those ones.
Mm-mm.
You gotta have reading skills for a rave, actually. Otherwise you're gonna start hugging people you definitely don't want to hug. Do you have any rave stories from an anime con?
Ah, God. So... No, but I do have a story about a friend who tried to get me to go to a real rave.
All right.
We went, like, it wasn't any big ordeal. He was like, "Look, I'll pay for your ticket. I want you to come experience this thing with me." Mm-hmm. And this is the guy who my other friend found asleep in somebody's closet after a rave.
So this is the closet man.
So I know this is gonna be a time. Mm-hmm. And I've officially referenced 3 out of 5 of my beloved old middle school friend group.
One day we'll collect all of them.
Yeah. I have no stories to tell about 2 of them.
Well, I guess we're never getting the Poliwrath or the Jigglypuff then.
No, that's not true. They'll come up, I'm sure. But so, he was like, "You'll love it. It's a Pokemon rave."
Alright. When was this?
Was
this after Go?
No.
Oh my god. That's surprising to me, actually.
Yeah. So I went, and it was super boring.
Oh,
there was
no.
almost no one there. Like, compared to the size of the room they were in.
Yeah.
There were people there. There were probably 100 people there.
But compared to the warehouse that it was being held in,
there was no Pokemon music.
Mm-hmm. Did they have lights vaguely resembling Pokeballs?
Eventually, the monitor started playing a looping image of Red, like, doing a drop dance.
Alright.
Eventually.
Like an MMD?
Like, I don't know what that abbreviation is.
It's like a...
Gimme dance.
Yeah.
It must have been.
Yeah.
It must have been. And so, I'm standing by one of the support pillars of the warehouse.
Uh-huh.
And I noticed this other guy standing on the other side of the pillar.
But standing in a similar way that you were standing.
Very much.
Someone who is also not enjoying themselves.
And so, despite the blaring music and the guys on LSD slamming the barricades into the stage, I hit this guy up, and we just start chatting, and we move over to some couches, and I just at a rave where my friend was like, "You've got to experience a rave." I wound up just doing what I do everywhere.
Just talking to someone.
Hitting up a random person and having a wonderful night. He was a nurse. He was really cool. He was there with some friends who were way too into it.
Yeah.
You know, he was having the same experience as me. So, and it was just a very pleasant evening. Like, my buddy came by. He was like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "Nothing. When are we leaving?" Not that I'm not enjoying your company, my friend.
Yeah, I just need to go home at some point.
Yeah. It was just the dullest time. So it's not a super fun or engaging story, but it is a thing that happened to me, and it is the only insight I have on a non-convention rave.
That's
But I have been to one.
That's incredibly funny. That's hilarious to me. So it does seem that for the real rave, a non-convention rave, it does seem like LSD or a similar psychedelic imbibement, a similar drug, is necessary to enjoy it the way other people want other people to enjoy it.
Well, okay. Now, actually, I have one more rave-related story. It's short.
Okay.
After meeting Porch, the very next convention, my hair was cut short, believe it or not.
All right.
And I caught for all of you viewers who see my hair, I guess you see the art I do.
Yeah, you've seen the art.
Yeah.
It's fairly accurate.
So I cosplayed as Giovanni, the boss of Team Rocket, as a surprise for Porch, the Rocket Grunt.
Yes.
And it went over super well.
All right.
He saw me, he started bowing, and we killed it the whole convention. It was great. Then afterwards, we went to Waffle House. And so I got the Plusle girlfriend to do... She happened to have, like, a maid outfit that she had bought that was primarily white with some black, and she had a kitty cat ear hat that she glued a red jewel to, so she was my Persian.
That's cute.
You know, you do what you can. So it's me in a suit with an R on it, Porch in a, the standard black Team Rocket grunt outfit, just so when nobody thinks he was running around as James or something.
No, yeah.
And then
just the black with the hat.
Girlfriend in a maid outfit with cat ears.
And you're at the Waffle House.
And we're at the Waffle House. And the first thing our waitress says to us is, "So do you guys sober rave?"
Yes.
And we were like, between the three of us, I think another friend was with us too. Between us, we were like,
"What is that?"
Like, we heard, like, we didn't go, like, soba noodles, like, raving with the... It was so weird. And we eventually explained what we were doing, and she was like, "Oh, are you guys dressed up as characters?" And he's like, "Yeah. Guess what we are?" And she looked at Porch, and she goes, "Are you the Hamburglar?"
Oh my god.
I don't know why she was asking us if we sober rave when she very clearly does not.
Yeah. She must know someone who does. He talks about it all the time. And she's like, "This must be what he's talking about." Finally, some clarity on what this guy talks to me about all the time.
Yeah, because rave attire clearly is a suit, a black turtleneck, or a maid outfit.
The maid outfit that sometimes is rave attire.
I mean,
listen, if you went to Hot Topic and all you had was that, right? You're either gonna come back with those jeans with a bunch of loops on them, or a maid outfit.
Now, I won't say that maid outfits are unheard of at raves, but I am saying that you're more likely to die if you go in a maid outfit.
Yes.
You will sweat to death.
Yes.
And probably ruin your outfit.
Yeah, probably. But if you bought it at Hot Topic, it didn't cost that much.
The standard rave attire of half of two halves of a bikini.
Or no shirt and the loop jeans.
Right. And 20 pounds of perler beads around your wrists is absolutely true.
Or fuzzy hand warmers.
Fuzzy hand warmers.
Cat ears.
Sure, but the torso is as bare as you can make it. Yeah, so no, we did not just come back from sober raving.
Well, now here's the final question we have to ask ourselves before the train comes here. Is a con a sober rave?
Homie, everyone besides you and I that we know gets absolutely plastered at cons.
Well, for us then.
One of the weirdest moments. Cons are still cool.
Yeah.
But a little more recently than I would have cared for it to come, I have learned of how much of the exact kind of partying I didn't go to because I was a nerd is happening amongst the nerds.
Oh, yes. That was incredibly surprising for me to learn. That, like, whoa, I've never been to a party like this. And, like, this happens all the fucking time at cons. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? You go to cons and you don't do this? Like, apparently we're out of the norm for even the con experience.
Yeah.
But
we sober con.
We do. See? It was true. Love can bloom even in the game room. Oh boy. Well,
so with that,
the train has come into the station, and we must bid our dear listeners adieu for now.
God, I am getting sick thinking of the idea of taking a train home from a rave. That sounds like the absolute worst ending to that night.
Well, I have.
Oh, you're right.
Because the public transit that I used for my old conventions was a light rail. It was literally a train, and I would literally take it home from conventions that I had gone to the rave to.
Goodness.
And it was as equally as horrible as you may imagine it. And with that thought of a horrible upset stomach riding along a slow poddling light rail system in the middle of a California city you've never been to, my name is Tony.
And my name is Jesse.
And this has all been Still Cool.